The containment breach on Lunar Outpost 7 did not begin with alarms or flashing lights or any of the usual warnings. It began with a silence so heavy that even the ventilation shafts seemed to hold their breath. I was on the night rotation watching sensor feeds and drinking recycled water that tasted like warm metal when the seismic monitors picked up a pulse from beneath the outpost. Not movement, a pulse. A rhythm too steady to be natural, too deliberate to be random. The outpost was built on the rim of a collapsed lava tube, and the scientists always whispered about strange thermal signatures from below, but we all ignored it, because out here ignoring things is how you stay sane. But the pulse kept rising. It shook the floor just enough that my boots vibrated. Then every monitor went black at the same time, as if something had reached up from under the station and cut every cable with one single sweeping motion. I went into the main corridor and found the lights flickering in long dying stretches. The doors were locked in emergency mode. The air tasted different, thicker, like something was breathing through the vents. I tried contacting the others, but all I got was static that sounded too much like whispers trying to form words. Then I heard the first scream from the research wing. Not the kind of scream a person makes when they are hurt. The kind they make when they see something their mind cannot understand. I moved toward it even though every instinct told me to run in the opposite direction. The hall was covered in a thin layer of frost even though the temperature was normal. My breath fogged in front of me like I had stepped into a freezer. Inside lab, the windows were shattered from the inside. The containment pod lay twisted open like a metal flower forced to bloom. Whatever had been inside was no longer inside. The notes scattered on the floor talked about a discovery found deep under the outpost. An organism not dead, but not alive. Dormant. Waiting. Feeding on radiation or heat or something we still did not fully grasp. The organism had woken up. I heard footsteps behind me. Slow, uneven, dragging footsteps. I turned and saw Officer Hale stumbling toward me, but something was wrong with him. His eyes were wide, but not focusing on anything. His skin looked stretched, as if something underneath was pressing outward. He tried to speak, but all that came out was a low, rattling sound that did not match any human throat. I backed away as he reached for me. His arm bent in a way no human arm should bend. The shadow behind him grew larger, as if his body was stretching into shapes that defied bone structure. I ran. I did not look back. There is courage, and then there is stupidity, and I was not about to confuse the two. The alarms finally came on, but they sounded warped and broken like the station itself was screaming. Emergency shutters slammed down, trapping me in the eastern section. The floor shook again, this time stronger. Something massive was rising from beneath the outpost. Something that had been sleeping for who knows how many years. Something we had awakened without understanding the cost. I reached the comms tower and tried manual override. All channels were blocked by an interference pattern that repeated the pulse rhythm I heard at the beginning. It was not random noise. It was structured. A signal. A message. Something ancient speaking through our systems and drowning out every human transmission. Then the hull tore open on the far side of the outpost. Not from pressure loss or mechanical fault. It ripped outward as if something inside had pushed through. The emergency lights flashed red across drifting dust and rising plumes of lunar soil. Shapes moved in the dust. Thin, elongated shapes that crawled across the walls as if gravity meant nothing to them. I moved toward the escape bay, hoping one of the pods still functioned. The hallway was filled with a low vibration that crawled into my bones. A rhythm matching the pulse. The same pulse that started this all. I saw more crew members, but they were no longer crew. Their bodies twisted in impossible angles. Their shadows stretching independently of their movements. They reached for me with hands that looked more like claws, as if their bodies were becoming something else. Something the organism wanted. I locked myself inside the launch bay. The lights flickered, and I saw the surface cameras still barely working. The ground beneath Outpost 7 was splitting open. A huge fissure glowing with a dull blue light. Something massive was crawling upward. Not a creature with limbs. more like a shifting mass of tendrils and bone-like structures constantly rearranging. A being that was never meant to exist on the surface. A being that had slept deep under the lunar stone, waiting for warmth and radiation and human arrogance to wake it. The air pressure dropped. The station creaked like a dying animal. I could hear the mutated crew gathering outside the bay door, scraping at the metal, trying to find a way in. I activated the escape pod, but the system showed errors. Something was overriding the launch sequence. The pulse signal again. Stronger. As if the organism knew I was trying to leave. I smashed the manual release, and the pod detached violently from the bay. For a moment I thought I was safe. Then I looked back through the small window and saw Lunar Outpost 7 collapsing into the glowing fissure. The mutated crew falling into the light. The massive being rising higher as if unfolding after centuries of sleep. The pod systems flickered, and the pulse signal started playing through the emergency speaker. Slow, steady, deep. Not random. Not noise. A message. A warning. Or maybe an invitation. I shut off the speaker, but the vibration continued through the hull, as if the thing below was already reaching for me across the void. If anyone receives this transmission, do not return to Lunar Outpost 7. Do not investigate the breach. Do not follow the signal. Whatever we woke up is not contained. It never was. It was only waiting. And now it knows we exist.